In this third lecture of Indian polity, we had to discuss about certain acts developed by British Parliament to control Indian policies. In previous lecture, we discussed the reason why this was essential for British Parliament. Okay. Now, initially, British Parliament wanted to get control over India, that is East India Company, and to prove again and again that you are there in India, you are ruling as a necessity from your side, but we have full right to regulate your all political matter. Say, Parliament was not touching out any commercial aspect, but it was continuously enhancing and explaining these company members that you are there in India because of England. England is having backing to you, and therefore the act was set up, that is Regulating Act of 1773. It clearly indicates that 1773 Maratha power was restored after third war of Panipat. It was restored back, and except Punjab territory, rest of the territorial possessions were there in hands of Maratha power only. Now, Bengal, particularly the British East India Company's headquarters, we can say that is Calcutta at that time. So it was now clearly under British rule, and therefore they made, according to that situation, you should not say that okay, entire India was there in hands of Britishers. No, while making this type of law, entire India was not there in hands of Britishers. Regulating Act, that is of 1773. First thing, the main intention of this law or act, that was to establish control of British Parliament over East India Company's political affair. That was the main clear intention. Now, the Court of Directors of the company would henceforth be obliged to submit all communication received from Bengal about civil, military and revenue matters in India to the British government. Apart from that, territories in India were also subjected to some degree of centralized control, and therefore they decided that the governor of Bengal should be considered as Governor General. So other factories, for example Bombay, at that time it was Bombay, now we have to call it Mumbai, but as I am telling you this history, I have to say Bombay. So Surat, Bombay, all these factories were the governors, they were controlled under Bengal. Now let me remind you, this is no doubt part of history, but how Britishers administered. So initially they set out a factory. So it was at Surat, it was at Bombay, it was at Rajapur, it was at Madras, that is Chennai, and at Kolkata. The governors were having freedom because communication skill was not that developed, communication system was not that developed at that time, and therefore and India is very vast, and therefore these governors were having their own rule over the factory part. No doubt initially they were not possessing any land directly, and therefore they were involved in trade, but the situation changed out after Britishers got control over Mumbai, that is Bombay, and then they occupied Madras, Kolkata, like that they built up fort, and it was all under control of governor. But some matters happened, and then there was a need to be a centralized system, and then according to this regulating act, they considered the governor of Bengal should be called as Governor General at that time, and Bombay Presidency, then Surat, all these things were considered to be under, after that it was a Chennai, it was under control of Britishers, of Bengal. So like that the system was developed. Now here in 1773 we are aware that entire India was not under control of Britishers, but the factories were developed all over India by them. Now according to this act, Supreme Court was set up at Calcutta at that time, and amendment that was carried out, that is Amending Act of 1781, defined more precisely the jurisdiction of Supreme Court. Now after this 1773 Act, it was turned, that is 1784, that is called as Pitt's India Act. It's a political situation, yet Maratha power is there, and it is flourished. So little bit corrective that occurred according to this act, that is called as Pitt's India Act of 1784. It was also, we can say, a sort of compromise was there, and they decided that council members should be raised from 4 to 6, that is for Viceroy's Council. Now here it was established particularly to show the supremacy of British Parliament over East India Company, and then after 2 years only, another act was there, that is Amending Act, that is of 1786. Now certain anomalies were there, they were corrected out in 1786 Act, that is Amendment Act. It was actually according to Pitt's India Act that directors of company can appoint governor, governor general, as well as commander in chief, but that should be noted that there should be control, it should be informed by them to company, that is to crown. The parliament's control was there on this appointment, the important servants appointment obviously, and then there was a question that who is superior, governor general is superior or commander in chief, and ultimately according to this Amendment Act, it was decided that in time of emergency, not in the regular circumstances, but at time of emergency, governor is having right to fuse, governor general is having right to fuse both the post and should assume that Governor General of India is Commander in Chief of India, and this way the both posts were allowed to fuse, that is according to 1786 Act, that is Amendment Act. And then Warren Hastings was the first Governor General to do so. So here we have to say that 1786 Amendment was there, so this is called as foresight. It was applicable in 1857. Now till here we have to remember like that Regulating Act of 1773, then it was Amendment Act of 1781, then it was Pitt's India Act of 1784, and then the Act of, that is also again Amendment Act of 1786, it was there. Then after 86, it was turned of 1793. Now in this 1793, government changed why we have to give every time some amendment. So they decided that there should be a lump sum period, that is of 20 years period, and during these 20 years company was given a charter. So now you can rule in India on behalf of Crown for 20 years. So that's why we are calling this act as Charter Act. So you can remember in this way that Charter Act of 1793. Then every 20 years we have to renew the charter. So this way we can now keep in mind that 1774 to 93 it was a developing phase. Initially British Parliament was also learning to get emphasized control over company. Company was there getting control over India. Say, what was the major part here? That at time of 1793, already there was Anglo-Maratha War. The first Anglo-Maratha War, according to Britishers. Actually, the war was continued during time of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj only. There was Anglo-Maratha War. It was a naval battle near Mumbai. Maharaj wanted to construct a fort that is called as Khanderi. Britishers assumed that they got Mumbai, that means they got this Khanderi also. There were two islands near Mumbai, not exactly near Mumbai, but near Pisiriti, near Alibag actually. So them were Khanderi and Underi. Whereas Britishers termed them Henry and Kendri. And then there was war at time of Maratha Empire development during Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj rule only. And Britishers were defeated completely in this naval battle. They accepted the supremacy of Maratha Navy over this Khanderi, and then Maratha Navy, along with all other things, constructed the fort that is Khanderi. It is in deep sea fort. Say there were many forts along the coastal line, like Fort Janjira, that was controlled by Siddhi people, that means native of Abyssinia or Ethiopia. They controlled this fort. To challenge them, Shivaji Maharaj constructed Sindhudurga. Then Vijayadurga was fortified. It was already there. It was fortified. Then Padmadurga was constructed near to the Janjira. And then Khanderi was constructed. So Khanderi was in the deep sea. Khanderi is in the deep sea. We have to go there somewhere 5 kilometers in the sea. Whereas all these other forts, they are either adjoining to the coastal line or little bit inside. Okay, sure. So we are discussing that according to British history, the first Anglo-Maratha War that was there, where in some books it is mentioned that war was indecisive and status quo was maintained. The meaning is that whatever the territory occupied by Britishers, that was restored in hands of Maratha army. Okay, we are not going in detail of that history part, but the thing is that Britishers were defeated in this first Anglo-Maratha War, and then also they were having planning. They were having long-term planning how to conquer this empire. So 1793, they got charter. This charter was considered that 20 years company can rule. Now, code was developed. That is, we can say the laws, they were developed, they were printed. It was said that laws were printed, they were translated in Indian languages also. And company, or rather I should say due to British influence, they wanted that citizens of their kingdom should aware about their rights. See the contradiction, but yes, aware of their rights, then privileges, immunities, and for that purpose they said it should be printed. The learned people should turn towards British Empire. Now, why Britishers in this particular part? Say we are discussing in 1793. They were encouraging all these things because they wanted to prove and to show that British rule, British administration is much more better than what you are experiencing right now. So Bengal was ruled by Mughals and later on the rebellion governors of Mughals. So there was no definite law and order. But Britishers established a secular state, and then they wanted that the civil laws should be implemented impartially. Bracket. Okay, because yet we have to discuss a lot of things. But as long as there was context with Indians, the laws were used impartially. So like that things were there, and then this is the important of Charter Act of 1793. Now, certain questions are always there in our minds. That can traders influence democratic government? Many times this is a matter of debate, that government is acting in such a way that their act is beneficial for traders. Today also people are saying like that, and in old days also people were saying same, that government is pro-traders and all that. This happens in democracy particularly. So what I am talking is not in 2023. What I am talking is in 1803. British government was now influenced, obviously, because it was a democratic government and funds are needed for party. And then the free traders, say there was a monopoly of British East India Company. That means whatever the trade between England and India, that should be carried out through company only. But free traders were there, they were demanding that we have to now abolish monopoly. It was given in 1600, now it is 1800. And therefore, after 200 years enjoying all these monopoly, companies should now get freed from this type of monopoly. Now obviously government was there, company was under control of government, and the free traders were putting out pressure over government. At the same time, religious ideas, religious reformers, they were also putting out pressure over government, and all this influence occurred when Britishers passed Charter Act. Now we discussed the first Charter Act was there in 1793. So after 20 years means 1803. So this Charter Act was there. Now according to this, the company's monopoly to trade with India was abolished. But to keep it, we can say something correct. It was continued that company can carry out trade with China with monopoly for another 20 years. Okay, so this way company was not now having monopoly to trade with India. Say 1803. This was particularly around Second Anglo-Maratha War. Now almost all India, say it was almost clear that the Maratha kingdom is going to get end. Matter is of the years, time. But certainly Britishers got confidence that they are going to conquer Maratha kingdom. And therefore, it was now they decided that we can spread Christianity also. Say, Portuguese were the first European in modern days to conquer Indian land. But they got unpopular because of their fanatic ideas about religions, and they were spreading out their religion forcefully. Britishers observed this, and during British rule they decided that we should not touch any religious concept in India. We are there to trade with Indians, we are there to rule over Indians, we are to earn money from India, that's all. Let religious ideas keep apart. That's why in 1793, I used the word secular state, that was used. But in 1803, those who were ambitious about religion, they forced government, and then Christian missionaries were allowed to spread their religion in India. But restriction was little bit kept, that they should obtain license from directors of company, that in which area they can spread religion and which area not. So like that, some control was kept from company side. Actually company was not ready to wish this all thing because they wanted to develop their empire. But now the situation was almost changed, and now they decided to carry out Western education in India. They decided to spend some amount for this educational purpose. Their idea was to develop learned Indian, and they should get knowledge of science. And we had to take Indians to the Western education and according to time. So like that concepts were there. though criticize is always there. I may also criticize that, okay, at that time, how many schools were there in London? I'm not talking about entire England, only London. How many schools were there at that time? Then, how do you say that Indians were backward in knowledge, backward in these all things? Because yet you are not able to solve various mysteries in Indian architect constructions and all that. And you are claiming that Indians were backward in science and technology. Want to learn? Go observe our video lectures in history, particularly Ajinta, then Ellora, that is Kailasnath temple technology, then Burhadeshwar temple at Tamil Nadu, Tanjavur, and like that various things are there, not only one or two, even that Vishrustambha at Mehroli, Delhi. So you can check, n number of things are there. So many things were destroyed by foreign invaders, but yet whatever is remaining, that also reveals that Indians were having knowledge of science and technology since at least 5,000 years ago. Go and see IBC, what knowledge was there in India at that time also. And therefore, it is very risky for me to say that Indians were backward at that time in terms of knowledge. No doubt. Particularly, we can say that in the last 1,000 years, Europeans were getting advanced and they reached to some high level. But yet, it must be remembered that worldwide science research that was going on, and that's why cannonball technology, then paper, printing, all these things were developed by Chinese people, not by Britishers. Okay, anyway, but they decided to give training to India. That's a very nice thing, and that's the beginning of English education in India. Therefore, I am communicating with you in English. Otherwise, maybe possible I should communicate with you in Hindi or Marathi, but now I am communicating with you in English. So this is about Charter Act of 1803. Now obvious next Charter Act should get developed in 1833. We are going to discuss this in next lecture.